and discourages you, and how do you brave through that? So I hope that towards the Q&A we get to have that conversation and dig a little deeper. I describe myself as an intersectional female, and I'm a leader. I sometimes also called bossy, but that's okay. I'm a technologist. Like I said, I've been in it for a long time. Fun fact, my undergraduate degree is in art history. And my upbringing, I went to arts academies, and my master's is in data science and information systems. So a little bit of right brain, left brain going on. But I haven't been able to exercise both in certain roles, and finally I'm in a role where I can. So here we are. I'm also an ambivert, which you hear people say introvert, you hear people say extrovert, and there's actually something called ambivert, which means we don't mind being in public, we don't mind going out, we don't mind speaking, but we also like to rest, and we also like spa days, and solo time, and manicures, and wine nights, which is I'm a Gemini, that's for anybody who cares. You can follow me in those areas. So I want to play a game with everyone, because we have a lot of perceptions that we bring to the table. Let's talk about some of those perceptions and baggage we carry. So upstairs on the 5th floor, there was a booth or an area with tinfoil hats, and I see tinfoils. So I thought this would be very appropriate, because this is not your average security person, but let's play a game and figure out who is the security person. So next slide. Is that a security person?
No. Probably.
Probably? I heard probably. Who thinks it's a security person? Okay. All right, next slide. Is that a security person? Wow, okay. Good. Next one. Is that a security person? Next one. Is that a security person?
Totally. Yeah. Totally.
That is my favorite fashion. Next security person. Is that a security person to you? If you saw that, would that be a security person? Next one. Is that a security person? Is that a security team?
Nah, someone's wearing a suit.
Good count then. Could be a sales person. There's a bias right there, assuming that's a salesperson.
Agile development. The US people with those things.
Or it could be a Kanban board.
Yeah.
Okay, so next. These are security people. This is what a security person looks like. This is what a security team looks like. The truth is, those are all people I would hire before this, and they can all be security people, and it doesn't matter. And I want you to look at this list, because I think we all went to the website and we thought about who the speakers were, and it was such a well-crafted list. And I'm honored to be here, and I'm touched by some of the talks. But that's what you want your security teams to look like. And of course, men, and people of color, and people who are trans, and people who are gay, and all of that. That is what makes up a good security team. Why is it? Because we can't protect against threats unless we have diversity of thought. We all bring something to the table around how we think, with the experiences we've had, and the way that we've experienced threats and risks in our lives, in our personal lives. Not the tech stack, not our professional lives, but threats and risks. The very ways that you think about threats and risks, that's what we bring to the table, right? And so that shapes our security careers, that shapes our tech careers, and that's why it's important to actually have a very diverse, well-rounded team. You're actually missing threats and risks by not doing that. So, all right, next. Common misconceptions of security people. Let's go one by one. That they're mainly men. I'm glad we're here because we already know that that's not true based on the previous slide. It is true that only 11% of the cybersecurity workforce today are women. And that's sad, but we need to step up our game. We need to encourage our girls and daughters and peers and women and seasoned women in all sorts of industries to enter security, and we need to give them a path to do that. I'm going to give you some tips at the end on how we can, some actionable things that we can do. The next one, security people only wear hoodies. I enjoyed that little lunch conversation about how people dress and how people are perceived, and how you dress determines your upward mobility and all of that kind of stuff. But contrary to popular belief, we do not all wear hoodies. In fact, in that nice picture of today and all the speakers, we did not see anyone in hoodies. So I actually did a talk for CISO Magazine, an article where they talk about that stereotype around men in hoodies or people in hoodies and what's holding us back. Because when young girls see that, or underserved communities see that, they're actually not wanting to go in because it's associated with other less profitable fields. And that's actually not the case at all. We know that security is a great field to be in and to navigate through, but that's the subtext of how we're marketing it, how vendors are marketing it, and how the industry's been marketing it for years. I like this security fashionista up there a couple slides ago, because security people, I have had security people in my company with 5-inch heels, and I love them, you know, so we can all dress any way we want, and that doesn't make us more or less of a security person. Security people live in a bunker are introverts. Not true. With our speaker lineup today, you saw that not everybody is an introvert, and not everybody lives in a bunker. We do take precautions a little bit more than the average person who doesn't know about security, but that's our job, to educate people and get everybody elevated to understand the threats and risks they face in their everyday lives. So, security people love to say no. How many people here ever worked at a company, took something to the security team, and they declined you or said no? Yeah. So that's what I thought. And it's a misconception that security people love to say no. Actually, saying no for us is just as hard as any of you. Our job is actually to create and craft workarounds, creative workarounds, to be able to say yes. We all want to say yes. There's risks we can mitigate along the way, and there's risks that we're willing to take or that you're willing to take. And our job is to figure out, to make sure you have all the knowledge to get those risks and those decisions made. So everyone in security is a hacker. Is that true? That could or could not be true depending on your definition of what a hacker is. I'm not going to go into that because it's a whole other talk. But in industry terms, people think of it as a penetration tester. And they like to break things, and that's all security is breaking things. It's not. A little bit about me and my company. I work for Oath. Oath is formerly Yahoo and AOL and TechCrunch, Engadget, Tumblr, Flickr, and many other companies merged together. Our security team is about almost 200 people and growing. We are in over 100 locations. Certainly Sunnyvale is one of them. We have a New York office, LA office, Virginia office, Taiwan office, etc. But out of 200 people, they can't all be hackers and pen testers. There's got to be people doing other things, right? There's other talent that we need. I myself am head of security engagement. My role is to educate engineers, builders, developers around security practices. They can build into their Java or OWASP practices or Kubernetes security, whatever the tech stack is they're practicing today. The other part of my role is to get people to care about security awareness, and it's not the typical security awareness, click a box, leave it alone, and go on, move on to the next year. It's actually the engagement part where you want to teach people to do the right thing in increments so it sticks and it becomes learned behavior, a part of who they are, regardless of what company they're with. And it becomes a part of their personal lives too. There's also a misconception that you have to have worked in government or military, and that's not true. I think earlier in the security days, most people, they started out in government or military because that was the only path in security. I myself started out in government because in the 90s, the jobs you can get in security are with the government. So that's a path, but that's not the only path. You know, there's certainly Silicon Valley's no stranger to having all types of security jobs, and you don't have to be in government or military. There are some jobs in that field, in government, military, and security. And then the last misconception is that you have to be an expert coder to be in security, and that's not true either. I myself have never been a developer in my life, ever. Do I know how to code a little bit? Yes. Do I understand tech stacks? Yes. Have I architected things? Yes. But I'm not a seasoned developer as a part of my career path. And honestly, if you started out a long time ago, that wasn't even an option. So I'm glad it's an option for all women and girls today. And you should take advantage of that. So I'm going to go into my story. I told you a little bit that I started with the government. I've been in security for about 20 years. I'm going to get a little personal here. My upbringing was in a traditional Indian household. I grew up in New York. And my family, of course, never said, hey, security is something you should do. Technology is something you should do. Nobody encouraged me to do that. But I've always been interested in defense and attacks and how things happen. Not actually in the technology vector. It could be in the physical vector. It could be in history and wars and all of that kind of stuff. So I've been interested in that for a lot of my life. My parents, of course, wanted me to be doctors, as many people have experienced with Indian, Asian backgrounds. And I did not pursue that path. I pursued art history and art and technology. And it was the right thing for me because it made sense. But I had to dig deep to figure out what was right for me and how I use my skills. I started my career in the government, and I was actually in New York working for the government during 9/11 and cybersecurity. Of course, 9/11 kind of changed the trajectory of the security field. And from there, I went into banking, and the role started opening up in security. I worked on Wall Street and consulting companies and all that. And then about 11 years ago, I came to the Bay Area for Apple. And since then, I've been the CISO of Splunk, and now I'm with Oath/Apple. So that's kind of my career journey. Now, we'll talk about the different roles in the industry in a bit. Moving on. All right, so how did I figure out what I wanted to do? Because nobody told me to do it. And I didn't know what was actually an option in the 90s or mid-2000s or when these things didn't exist, you know? Certainly in 2001, Facebook, as we know it today, didn't exist. Twitter didn't exist. A lot of companies that we know did not exist. So, I mean, even the internet was not the way it was back then. So how did I figure out what I wanted to do? Kind of dug deep. So the gummy bears, by the way, are me feeling alone in the last one. I was the only gummy bear, as you can see. Person of color, female, security, and so many things. You can see gummy bears on the presentation. Just to keep it fun. And so you have to dig deep. What's your inner strength? You have to ask yourself these questions. Without asking yourself these questions, you're going to feel very overwhelmed by the security industry today. Right? What is it you want to do? What's your inner strength? What's your superpower? What makes you want to stay up late or wake up early? You know, the security field, a lot of late nights or early mornings. and you have to be okay with that. But there's also roles that allow you to have work-life balance, and you can change roles, and you got to know what the roles are. And what is it that you want to be? I put the blank is because it'd be when you grow up, when you don't grow up, in 10 years, yesterday, tomorrow, whatever it is you want to be. So you have to kind of figure out what your strengths are. Ask, jot some questions down, jot some answers down, whether you like to solve puzzles, whether you like to build things, whether you like public speaking. These are some questions you can ask yourself to figure out what path you should navigate in your security career. So how do you figure out what your options are? These are some roles that either I've been in or worked very closely around in my career path. So you can see there's all types of titles and roles that you can take, and to a lot of people it's all jumbled. And it's like, what does it mean? What is it? I will tell you that all of those roles, regardless of what they are, do touch on people, process, and technology. So that means people is actually most important. You have to understand human triggers, human behaviors, what makes people tick, how applications are crafted. That is actually more important than just understanding the tech stacks. Tech stacks are absolutely important, but I would put all of these up on things you need to focus on. So I kind of ranked a few of them on what skills you need, and and this is completely biased in my opinion, based on the roles I've been in and where I've used my skills into what frequency. So let's say as a vulnerability analyst, your job is actually to find vulnerabilities, whether you use a tool or you use manual testing or wherever it might be. Your job actually is more around people and figuring out how they build systems, how they build code, what makes them integrate. What people would think it's technology. The technology gets you there, but it's actually what the motivations are for the company, what the business goals are, how they're changing their tech stack. So you really have to understand the people and how the people are building their applications to understand them. Application security engineer. Again, technology is number 1 there, people are number 2, and the process is number 3. Anybody could re-rank these based on their experiences. This is my experience. So the process is important because we talk about policy and workflow and project management and all that stuff. That's critical to information security and a career in security. Those are all fields you can go into. Next, I've also been a security policy analyst. Certainly, people matters there the most. Technology is number 3 there, and the process, understanding the process and the workflow that people make decisions is important. And the last one I give an example is incident response engineer. And 2 talks ago, we had some great presentations on how to deal with an incident and what an incident means. And this would be my ranking around. It's actually about the process. It's not about blaming people. It's not about saying, okay, well, let's change everything that happened that never happen again. It's actually about understanding what the process is and the technology behind it for the second, and then third, the people is less. It's not blaming the person who did it. So, matches it very nicely. Next. I want to talk a little bit about Girls Who Code. There's a woman named Reshma Sajani, and she gave a talk, a TED Talk a couple years ago, on the bravery deficit. So in her talk, she said that women, girls specifically, are taught to hold back, and boys are taught to be brave. And from that, these learned behaviors lead us to having courage, to applying for things, doing things, and the baggage that we carry into our adult lives. She gave an example of a class, a 5th grade class that was learning to code. And they had a bunch of girls and boys in the class, and the instructor was going around the class and A girl looked stuck, and the instructor looked at the screen, and there was nothing on the screen. There was no code. And if the instructor had just hit back a few times, she would have seen that the girl actually wrote lots of code and deleted it. And the reason she deleted it is because it wasn't perfect. So perfection is what the girl was seeking, and not executing on something and showing the work that she had done. What is it that the bravery deficit is all about? It's about being brave without being perfect. And we hear that women are not in the cybersecurity field, and we hear that they're not applying as much. But we also know that they are in computer science, and they are in tech, going into tech, or they're interested. Why is it that they're not applying? It's because the job descriptions, or the way that the role is written, or the way that it's framed, makes a woman feel like she has to check off every single box on that. And she has to be perfect to be able to apply for that. And that's not the case at all. So our biggest enemy as women is imperfection. We have to be comfortable with imperfection. We have to be comfortable that our code won't always work perfectly the first time and not give up. That semicolon can make the difference. It's kind of a perfection or bust principle, as they call it. And of course, the raise your hand thing. How many classes have we been in where women are afraid to raise their hand? We hear about this all the time. That little girls in classes, STEM classes, whatnot, don't raise their hands enough and don't ask questions because they're afraid. Let's change that. Let's teach them to be brave. Next. I heard a really good quote from one of my Twitter people that I follow, and she's in security, Tara Wheeler, you might know her. She just went to Splunk, I think. And she said, if you aren't being rejected more than you're being accepted, you're not asking for enough. You're not reaching high enough. You're not valuing yourself enough. You're not trying new things. Ask people who scare you to help you and begin to believe failing is really learning. Let's get ready to fail, people. If you're winning constantly, you're in a rut. You have to be okay with failure. You have to be okay with not being perfect. I just spoke to a young woman 24 hours ago who told me she wants to get into coding and she's practicing at home, but she doesn't want to apply for internships until she absolutely knows the ins and outs of Java. And that's not the point. She's 18 years old, and she's waiting for that perfect moment, the thing that makes her feel whole and complete in that field, and then she has the courage to step out. And I gave this very chat with her, actually, and said, you don't have to be perfect. In fact, we can teach you the rest. And you're going to keep learning and growing along the way. So here's some actionable steps you can take. Don't be afraid to ask for what you want. That means even in your salary negotiations. So I hear people talk about the wage gaps and all that. Let's step up. Let's ask for what we want. Let's do our research and figure out who's making what and how we get that. In my negotiations, whether it's roles or salary or whatever, I ask for what I want. And I encourage all of you to do that. Ask for what you want in your manager, in your organization, out of yourself, out of your career, and out of the money you want to make. But it has to be based on research and practicality and incremental steps. You don't have to be perfect. You just have to ask. Next thing is call for papers and present. This is a great conference. I'm so glad that we're able to bring this all together. There's so many other industry vectors to get involved and avenues to get involved. You can go to B-Sides, you can go to DEF CON, you can go to Black Hat. There's some industry conferences. There's also some groups like ISSA, EWF, so many. You can, I'm sure there'll be a list at some point. You can find them all. But you know, one of the things women don't do is actually put their paper in 4 conferences. So let's start putting our papers in. Let's bombard the industry with papers and original thought and ask to be on stage and ask to present and ask to speak. So let's do that. Another thing is raise your hand, right? If you don't understand, don't be afraid to raise your hand. Voice your truth. Voice what you're feeling. Voice the injustice. We have to do this. If we can't do this, nothing's going to change. And then, of course, mentor someone. I love mentoring. We need to teach our girls to be brave. The thing about mentorship is people feel that they have to be at a certain stage in their career to be mentors, or they don't have anything to offer someone coming into the role or coming into the field. And I think we can all be mentors to someone. It doesn't matter what stage of career we're in. And we can be mentees of someone. You can be the teacher and the student. And that's, often a mentor gets more out of the relationship than a mentee. So you can actually learn from your mentee. So I would encourage everyone to either become a mentor or get a mentee and start that dynamic. This is one of my favorite quotes because I love Oprah. And she said, think like a queen. A queen is not afraid to fail. Failure is another stepping stone to greatness. I think that pretty much says everything that this conference represents. We need to be okay with failing. We need to be okay with changing technologies, braving through things we don't know, and stepping up when opportunity is given to us with courage. And I think that's it. Thank you. I'll play the music. Does anyone have questions?
I'm really interested in this raise the hand idea at Houston. Do you find that women are afraid to ask questions and provide answers? Like, raise your hand and give an answer in class? Or do you feel like it's more like afraid to admit they don't know something?
I think it's a little bit of both.
Yeah.
I think that women, girls in class don't like to raise their hands. These are studies. Historically, wouldn't raise their hands in certain settings. And for women who are a little older, they don't provide answers when they're called on in college. They don't provide the answer when the professor calls on them. They're not quick to raise their hand. But I know that all of you are very different from that. Because you're going to speak up and you're going to provide that answer. I think it's both. We need to get better at both. And that's where some of that other action around stepping up and submitting your papers, knowing that you don't have things perfect, but you can still be a thought leader. You can still present at conferences. You can still mentor someone. All of that stuff is actually going to add to being able to raise your hand and provide answers. And then providing an example for the next generation to be able to do that because they've had the right, mentees and examples in front of them.
You were talking about the perfection issues. I don't recall the source, I hate when I do this, but I recall here reading somewhere men will apply for something if they're like 30% qualified, and women tend only if they're 120%. That's something ridiculous like that. My numbers may be off, but plus or minus 10%.
The question was around, the statement was around men apply for things when the role is 30%, they're qualified at 30%, and women apply when they're only 120% qualified. Sorry, 120? Okay. So, yeah, those are things we need to change. If we feel like we're halfway there, why aren't we applying? Why do we have to be perfect? You're never going to be perfect once you accept that. Life goes a lot easier. Yeah.
Yeah, the best advice that I got was when I started looking into jobs. Don't look for a job that you can already do, look for a job you would like to do. So if you're perfect for it, you should be applying. Because then you have nothing to learn. You already bring everything to the table.
That's right. That's right. So, if you know everything 100%, that's not the job you should be taking. That is not. In fact, you're, back to the quote from Tara. If you're not failing every once in a while, then you're not challenging yourself.
I'll follow on that thread. So you've hired a lot of people in your career. So when people apply and they only have about 30% of the bullet points addressed, is that someone who you would interview versus someone who has done the same job elsewhere but is just kind of taking a lateral for whatever their reasons are?
I think it really depends on the hiring manager. Me personally, I would look at that person. The things that matter to me are aptitude and personality and willingness for growth and learning. Those things matter to me. It depends on the role. The role, if it's, we need you to be a threat hunter right away and go look for threats right away. Some organizations will actually teach you how to do that when you enter the role, depending on the size and the budget and all that. And some organizations need you to do that from day one and have that skill set. So sometimes being in the right, applying to different companies, applying to different places, and figuring out whether the organization is going to help you achieve that or not is a good way to get into that field that you're interested in, right? I myself, I've hired, just most recently, I hired a woman on my team who is actually from physical security. So she was campus security. And I was like, well, you already understand threat vectors. You just have to change the model a little bit, to digital, from physical to digital. So you don't need to have the actual hands-on technical skills, and investing in her to go through that. It depends on the roles. My role is head of security engagement, so I am open to empowering people and bringing them up. Some people need the technical role right away, depending on the company. Any other questions? All right. Well, really appreciate your time, and thank you for being here and for being brave.